In 2023, lawyers were hunting for $500 million, $533 million to be exact. It had vanished from the accounts of a company in crisis. The paper trail led them across the world to a hedge fund in Miami, Florida. The fund's registered address was a Pancake House. The money belonged to the most valuable education company on earth, a company built by a math teacher so good he filled stadiums, a company worth $22 billion, bigger than half the companies on India's stock exchange. It sponsored the Indian cricket team, the FIFA World Cup. It signed Lionel Messi. Today, a U.S. court has described what happened inside it as, quote, a deliberate fraud on a global scale. Its founder's net worth, officially zero. This is how BYJU'S burned $22 billion. To understand how strange this story is, you need to understand something first. BYJU'S Ravendran was real. This is not a Theranos. There was no fake product. The talent was genuine, and that's exactly what makes the ending so brutal. BYJU grew up in Ajikoti, a small coastal village in Kerala, India. Both his parents were teachers. He skipped classes, not to slack off, but to play football, and taught himself from books at home. He became an engineer at a shipping company, and on vacations he'd help friends prepare for the CAT, India's brutally competitive MBA entrance exam. For fun, he sat the exam himself. He reportedly scored in the 100th percentile, twice. So in 2006, he quit his job and started teaching. Word spread fast. The workshops outgrew classrooms, then auditoriums. Within a few years, BYJU was teaching maths to thousands of students at a time, in indoor stadiums, beaming his classes by satellite to dozens of cities. Students called him a rock star. He called himself a teacher. In 2011, he founded a company, Think and Learn, with a handful of his own students. One of them, Divya Gokulnath, would become his co-founder and his wife. And in 2015, they compressed the stadium into a smartphone. BYJU'S, the learning app. Colorful videos, gamified lessons. A country obsessed with education, coming online for the first time. The app exploded. Silicon Valley noticed. In 2016, Mark Zuckerberg's foundation made its first investment in Asia, into BYJU'S. Sequoia followed. By 2018, it was a unicorn. By 2019, the BYJU'S logo was on the Indian cricket team's jersey, in a cricket-mad nation of 1.4 billion people. The teacher had built an empire, and then the world handed him a once-in-a-century accelerant. March 2020. COVID. Every school in India shut. Overnight, 250 million students were stuck at home, and their panicked parents all reached the same conclusion. The phone is now the classroom. For an online learning company, this wasn't a tailwind. It was a rocket engine. BYJU'S gave away free access, and users flooded in. The company would go on to claim over 150 million registered learners. Investors weren't just knocking, they were breaking down the door. Silver Lake, BlackRock, Tiger Global, the Qatar Sovereign Fund. By late 2020, BYJU'S was worth $12 billion. And this is where the teacher made his first fatal decision. He decided growth alone wasn't fast enough. He went shopping. In about 18 months, BYJU'S bought roughly 10 companies for over $2.5 billion. Akash, a 33-year-old chain of physical coaching centers, for nearly $1 billion. American Kids platforms, Epic and Osmo. Coding school White Hat Jr. It was the fastest acquisition spree in Indian startup history. But here's the thing about a $2.5 billion shopping spree. You need $2.5 billion. So in November 2021, BYJU'S did something no Indian startup had done at this scale. It borrowed $1.2 billion from American institutional lenders, a term loan B, hedge funds, distressed debt specialists, the kind of lenders who read covenants for sport. Remember this loan. Every single thing that follows from this loan. For now, though, nothing but blue sky. March 2022, a new funding round values BYJU'S at $22 billion. The most valuable startup in India, the most valuable education company on the planet. It sponsors the FIFA World Cup in Qatar. And in November 2022, it signs Lionel Messi, arguably the most famous human alive, as its global brand ambassador. A village math teacher standing next to Messi on top of a $22 billion empire. It would never be worth that much again, because underneath the valuation, 3 cracks were already spreading. Crack number 1, how the money was actually made. BYJU'S wasn't really a tech company at its core. It was a sales machine. Thousands of counselors cold calling parents with one message, endlessly repeated, "Your child is falling behind." Journalists in India's Child Rights Commission documented the aggressive playbook and its darkest feature: courses costing tens of thousands of rupees, financed through third-party loans that many low-income parents said they never fully understood. Rickshaw drivers, daily wage workers, signed up for EMIs on a salesman's promise that this app would change their child's life. The company denied mis-selling was systemic, but the complaints kept piling up. And India's child protection body summoned the CEO to explain. Crack number 2, the accounts. Public companies file audited results like clockwork. BYJU'S, a company claiming world-class scale, went quiet. Its results for financial year 2021 arrived 18 months late. And when they finally landed, in September 2022, they detonated. Under auditor pressure, BYJU'S had to change how it recognized revenue. Restated revenue, around Rs 2,300 crore, roughly half of what had been projected. The loss, Rs 4,508 crore, nearly 18 times the previous year. And the year after that was worse, a loss of Rs 245 crore, about $1 billion. One of the largest losses in Indian startup history. The genius teacher story had survived on one assumption, that somewhere behind the marketing, the maths worked. The company's own filings now said it didn't. Crack number 3, the cash. By October 2022, BYJU'S was announcing layoffs, 2,500 people, to achieve profitability. Weeks later, it unveiled the Messi deal, firing thousands with one hand, signing the world's most expensive ambassador with the other. When a company does that, the problem is never marketing. The problem is arithmetic. And now the loan comes back. That $1.2 billion loan had conditions, covenants. File your audited accounts on time. BYJU'S hadn't. The lenders declared breach, organized under a trustee called Glass Trust, and demanded their money. BYJU'S response? In June 2023, it skipped a $40 million interest payment and sued its own lenders, calling them predatory. The loan war was on, and during that war, the lenders discovered something extraordinary. $533 million of their loan money, supposed to be sitting safely in a U.S. subsidiary called BYJU'S Alpha, was gone. It had been moved in 2022 into that Miami hedge fund, Camshaft Capital. Court records lay it out. Camshaft was founded by William Morton, 23 years old, no track record, no formal training in managing money. On official regulatory filings, the fund's business address was the IHOP on Northwest 42nd Avenue, Miami. The listed phone number didn't work. $500 million from a company that teaches children mathematics, parked with a 23-year-old whose office was, on paper, a pancake restaurant. American judges did not find this amusing. Contempt orders, $10,000 a day fines. And in February 2025, a U.S. Bankruptcy Court ruled that the founder's brother, Riju Ravindran, Camshaft, and the parent company had orchestrated, in the court's words, a deliberate fraud on a global scale. The family denies it all. They insist the money was used for the business and are preparing counterclaims of $2.5 billion against the lenders. The fight is still in court, but the money, much of it has still never been publicly accounted for. Back home, the empire was disintegrating in real time. June 2023, Deloitte, the auditor, resigns. The same week, all 3 board members representing investors, Prosus, Peak 15, the Zuckerberg Fund, resign. The board of a $22 billion company is now BYJU, his wife, and his brother. November 2023, India's Financial Crimes Agency issues a notice alleging 9,300 crore rupees in foreign exchange violations. He denies wrongdoing. December 2023, BYJU reportedly pledges his family's homes to pay staff salaries. February 2024, the bottom. Desperate for cash, BYJU'S raises money at a valuation of about $225 million, from $22 billion to $22.5 crore, a 99% collapse. Days later, his own investors vote to fire him as CEO of the company he founded. He calls the vote invalid and fights on. BlackRock has already marked its stake to zero. Forbes updates his net worth from $2.1 billion to nothing. And then, the final insult. Of all the billions, The thing that officially tipped BYJU'S into insolvency was a cricket bill. Era 158 crore, about $19 million, of unpaid sponsorship dues to India's cricket board. In July 2024, India's bankruptcy tribunal admitted the case. A settlement was struck, and then India's Supreme Court struck the settlement down, ruling the process had to run properly through all the creditors. The teacher had lost the classroom. What happens to a burned empire? It gets sold for parts. June 2025, in a US bankruptcy auction, Epic, the children's reading app, BYJU'S bought for $500 million, sells for $95 million. Tinker bought for $200 million, goes for $2.2 million, a 99% loss, hammered out over 48 rounds of bidding. In November 2025, a Delaware court ordered BYJU'S personally to pay over $1 billion. A default judgment issued because he'd repeatedly failed to comply with court orders to hand over information. A month later, the court walked the damages back and ordered a fresh phase, starting January 2026, to decide what he actually owes. That fight is still running, right now, in 2026. So is the insolvency in India. And BYJU'S himself? He's in Dubai. He says he's there for his father's medical treatment. Indian media note that investigators back home would very much like a word. His net worth, officially, zero. But here's the thing about BYJU'S Ravindran. Ask him, and the story isn't over. He calls himself, quote, broke, not broken. He's promising a comeback. BYJU'S 3.0, rebuilt around AI, rehiring his old employees. And he says, the moment I start teaching, I'm sure I will fill stadiums again. So what actually killed BYJU'S? 3 lines on a chalkboard. 1, growth bought with debt isn't growth. Strip the loans, the ones on the balance sheet and the ones sold to rickshaw drivers, and the rocket was burning cash the entire time. 2, when everyone who can say no leaves the room, believe them. The auditor and every independent director walked out in the same week. That's not an exit, that's an evacuation. 3, evaluation is an opinion. Cash is a fact. 22 billion was an opinion. The RSA 158 crore cricket bill was a fact. BYJU'S Ravindran really could teach. Students really did fill stadiums. But the best teachers live by one rule. The rule he built an empire forgetting: show your work. For years, nobody could check his. Maybe he does fill a stadium again someday. But the question in the front row won't be about calculus. It'll be, can anyone trust the maths? If you want more autopsies like this one, the scams, the collapses, the empires that lied, the next story's already up. Satyam, the fraud that fooled Wall Street for a decade. Subscribe, and I'll see you there.